Greetings from Northumberland. It's not a dark morning, it's just so sunny that I've had to close the curtains to allow the camera to work. It's Friday the 23rd of April. That means it's St. George's Day. And in my last job in Wakefield, it would have been my task this weekend to speak to a cathedral full of scouts and cubs and beavers and such like people for their St. George's Day parade. Because as you know, of course, St. George is the patron saint of England, and our flag, the red cross on the white background, the flag of England, is the flag of St. George. And he is the patron of a number of other countries as well, but I don't need to go into that. What's important to remember is it's just, let's just ditch the dragons. The story of St. George and the dragons probably comes from less than 1,000 years ago, and he lived more like 15 or 1600 years ago. And the dragon bit got attached to it in the days of knights and dragon slaying and all that sort of stuff. We know small amounts about him. His father was probably Turkish, a Roman citizen. His mother was probably from Syria. He died in Palestine. He never visited England. He didn't kill a dragon. And he's a Christian martyr. So what does that mean? First of all, he's from the east, from Turkey, from Syria, from that area around the Holy Land, where Christianity was so strong and where Christianity grew. That's important to remember, I think, for those of us who live in the West, that Christianity began and flourished in the East. And the idea that you can hold Christianity as sort of English values is ridiculous, because it starts as an Eastern religion, and we do well to remember that in days when we have to combat racism in the country and sometimes in the church. He was a Roman soldier. We don't know quite what his rank was, presumably of some importance because he's remembered. And he became a Christian and decided to give his life to Christ. The trouble was, this was the time of Diocletian, who was one of those emperors who most severely persecuted Christians. And that meant that George was arrested, tried, given the opportunity to recant his faith, but finally died as a Christian martyr. Died as a symbol of the fight between good and evil. And he was not the only one. There are still Christian martyrs now. In the last days in North Africa, we've seen Christians, Coptic Christians, martyred for their faith by Islamic extremists, by terrorists. So the fate of George was the fate of many Christians in many different cultures through the centuries. So why does he get associated with England? Well, of course, it's partly to do with the Crusades. George was a symbol of a Christian soldier who was fighting for right. And King Richard and those who were engaged in the Crusades began to appropriate him and his banner, his cross. And as I said before, it became the flag of England. There are many people who you might have chosen to be a patron saint for England who actually had something to do with England. But George remained there in the consciousness of those people who went to the Holy Land and who came back. And eventually George became the patron saint of our country. And it was very interesting to watch the funeral of Prince Philip on Saturday in St. George's Chapel, and St. George being evoked as a model of Christian life, of Christian endurance, of Christian courage. So we're left with this man who is admirable, and who has been the patron saint of our country for more than 700, 800 years. And we remember him today. But above all, we remember that he was a faithful servant of Christ, and that to honour our patron is to copy him, and for each of us to try to be faithful servants of Christ. May God bless us in that.